Hello, my name is Emma Maria Phillips. I am an honors student in behavioral neuroscience psychology. I started working as a volunteer in Dr. Danvu's sleep cognition and neuroimaging lab about 2.5 years ago and had the amazing opportunity to work full-time over the summer alongside the team with the help of a Kusra. The project I joined over the summer was working on the modulation of brain oscillations during sleep with periodic vestibular stimulation. While we often associate external stimulation with arousals and being wrenched out of sleep, mild stimulations can also enhance sleep states. One example of this can be found in a continuous back and forth movement of the bed. Dr. Omlin and colleagues experimented with linear and rotational movements in various axes, including longitudinal, lateral, and vertical. Dr. Perrault and colleagues published an article in 2019 using a rocking bed paradigm that consisted of a back and forth lateral movement in the y-axis over 10.5 centimeters on a 4-second basis or 0.25 hertz. This means that it took 4 seconds for the bed to return to its original point. Importantly, when a movement's velocity is constant, no stimulation is perceived, as if there were no movement at all. However, when abruptly changing directions, an object must stop, reducing its speed to 0, before accelerating in the opposite direction. It is thus thought that while the bed is constantly in movement, participants perceive the speed change of the bed before and after the turn. Since the lateral movement is composed of 2 turns, one could say that the participant would perceive a turn every 2 seconds. So the stimulation frequency would be 0.5 hertz. This type of repeated periodic stimulation was studied on specific brain oscillations occurrences during non-REM stages 2 and 3, particularly the sleep spindle and the dissociation. Both of which are associated with thalamocortical activity in the brain. Spindles are short-lived, between 0.5 and 3 seconds, and have a frequency range between 12 and 15 hertz. Associations are high amplitude slow waves between 0.5 and 1 hertz. Dr. Perrault and colleagues found that rocking increased spindle and association occurrences around the rocking markers, the turns. So you can see in the graph that in red, which is the rocking stimulation condition, there is a cyclic occurrence. So you can see that around the markers, there is more spindles and more associations in N2 and N3. In contrast, during stationary nights, so the black condition in the graph, no such increase was found, such that the occurrence of spindles and associations was uniformly distributed. Rocking also enhances normal sleep's beneficial effects on overnight memory consolidation, which particularly declarative memory, which includes facts. This is also tested with word lists that are learned, then recalled. In other words, it is normal to see improved memory in the morning for something that was learned before sleep, but it seems that the improvement is more important after having been rocked during the night. There are theories associating spindle and association activity to memory consolidation, but Dr. Perrault's study did not find a very strong association between the increased occurrence of spindles during rocking nights and memory performance, despite it being statistically significant. So it is important to investigate this matter further. The project I joined in Dr. Danvu's lab consists in a pilot study aiming to replicate Dr. Perrault's findings, as well as determine whether the rocking effects can be subject to habituation. In other words, instead of spending 1 experimental night on the bed in motion and 1 control night on the bed in stationary mode, the participants will be spending 3 consecutive nights on the bed in motion and 2 nights in stationary mode. If habituation occurs, the effects seen following the first night should plateau and perhaps decrease over time. But if there is no habituation effect, then rocking effects should hold in a more long-term way, which is what we expect. Unfortunately, due to delays in the construction of the bed, we were unable to start data collection over the summer as planned. Rather, we hope starting in January of next year. In the summer, I first reviewed recent literature on both vestibular and auditory open and closed loop stimulation. This is because I also worked with archival data that uses auditory stimulation, which is expected to have similar effects on sleep quality and memory as vestibular stimulation. I also learned to process data and analyze it. This includes the sleep scoring according to the guidelines prescribed by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, which involves manually determining sleep stages and detecting artifacts and arousals from electroencephalogram EEG recordings. For example, in the image on the screen, we could say that the person is in sleep stage non-REM 2 from the presence of spindles and key complexes. I also worked on the construction of the cognitive task, which we will be using for the rocking bed study. So the task is a word pair associate task, which assesses declarative memory. This type of memory, as I said before, involves conscious learning and recall, and common examples include the learning of facts and lists. For this task, participants will be asked to learn to associate pairs of words that are phonetically and semantically unrelated. This was done on the open source software Psychopay. During the encoding or memorizing phase, the participant is presented with 46 word pairs, one at a time. Each pair is presented for 4 seconds with a 1.2 second delay between stimuli. Participants would have to find the best learning strategy to learn to quickly associate words like blouse and salt pot. Then they have an immediate retrieval phase during which they are presented with one of the two words, and then they must type out the one missing. So here they have blouse, but they don't have the second word. So they have to type out salt pot. During this immediate recall, they are then shown the correct answer. However, during the delayed recall not the next morning, but 2 mornings later, they will not receive any feedback on their performance. So to construct this task, I first wrote the 2 lists of words, one word per each word of the pair in an Excel spreadsheet, and then I used Psychopay to build the task. The task is composed of routines, which are the Psychopay equivalent of PowerPoint slides. And there are first informational routines. So for example, the first 2 blue boxes at the bottom of the screen, these are giving instructions to the participants on the task. Then there are signs to indicate that to the participant that the task is starting or ending. So here there are their green boxes. And finally, there are the actual task, which includes the practice runs as well as the real trial. So encoding and retrieval trials both have the same basic components, which are the 2 words and then the plus sign in between. However, for the retrieval phase, there are also commands for the participant to be able to write out their answers and for these answers to be recorded. There is also a command for them to be able to change to move on to the next word pair. Then when building the task in Psychopay, I reference the spreadsheet. This allows the words to be presented in a randomized manner and also prevent me from having to write a new routine for each word. The output comes in an Excel spreadsheet format. There is 1 spreadsheet per participant and per Psychopay file. So 2 per participant since there are 2 retrieval tasks. As you can see on the screen, it is easy to manually and visually tally the scores by comparing the answer given by the participant with the correct answer. This is just a recap of the procedure. So essentially, we will be measuring answer accuracy improvement over 2 nights. Participants will be doing the encoding and immediate recall on the first evening, and then the delayed retrieval 2 mornings later. We will be using two separate lists of word pairs for the two simulation conditions, stationary and rocking. So this concludes my presentation for my work during the summer. I just want to thank Dr. Danvu for giving me this opportunity, during which I was able to get a better sense of research. I also want to thank Dr. Perrault, who trained me and supervised me more closely and also gave me a lot of advice. Finally, I want to thank the Rocking Bed team, with whom it was a pleasure to work. So thank you for listening.